President Biden apparently called President Xi Jingping of China today. The timing of this is really interesting, considering what I talked about last episode and the report that China possibly was involved in the cargo ship accident in Baltimore. They claim to be improving relations was the purpose of this call, and Xi responded publicly saying that, well, not Xi himself, a China foreign minister claimed that the U.S. has been waging a trade war that is, quote, bewildering and unfathomable. The timing seems to be possibly related to China's potential involvement in the Baltimore bridge incident. I mean, why else would they be doing something like this now? It seems more like a de-escalation attempt more than anything, like two countries having a conflict with one another and kind of de-escalating. The timing just seems really interesting to me. You have to read between the lines when you have an administration like this who continues to lie and hide information from its citizens. If they aren't going to be open and honest about they haven't said much about the Baltimore bridge incident, except initially saying that there was no terrorist involvement or anything. They've just kind of moved on from it, haven't said anything about it. When something very random and weird, like a cargo ship conveniently losing its power and driving right into a bridge at such an important port like that one that affects everyone globally, and then you're just kind of going to move on from it. It seems kind of odd. And then at the same time, having this call with China to improve relations, the timing of it all just seems kind of weird and seems related to potentially China being involved in the cargo ship incident, and maybe the United States is figuring this out and connecting the dots here and trying to stop this from happening again. Secretary of State Blinken and the Secretary of the Treasury Yellen will be making a trip to China in the coming weeks. Notice we're showing fear with China instead of strength. I'm not saying that we should launch a war with China. I'm actually saying the opposite. I'm saying if we could be strong against China in the first place and show strength, maybe this stuff wouldn't happen in the first place, like the bridge incident in Baltimore, if China was indeed involved, which I'm starting to think they were, considering all of the factors of what's going on right now, like this de-escalation trip, along with the report that they were possibly involved using the remote towing technology, a cyber attack on the cargo ship. If you remember the last trip that Blinken took to China, there was a picture of him shaking hands with President Xi Jinping, and he literally looked like castrated, like next to him. He was slouched over. He looked terrified. Meanwhile, you have Xi Jinping standing tall and strong and firm, and I guarantee you that picture was used propaganda-wise in China to show, like, look, the United States is scared of us. I mean, stuff like that you have to show strength, and instead of going to China and say, oh, please don't do that again. We're sorry, don't do that again. How about you show strength in the first place to where stuff like their cyber attacks, not just the Baltimore incident. I talked last episode, there have been weird instances of F-16s crashing while training, and there's been cyber attacks on our infrastructure like power plants and such. And the United States has openly said that China has been using cyber attacks to test this ability on us and on our systems. So how about you show strength in the first place to where that doesn't happen, and they don't feel inclined to do that, knowing that we won't do anything about it. And our response is going to be going to China, bowing down to Xi Jinping, saying, we're sorry, please don't do this again. We're sorry, whatever we did, we apologize, we'll stop. That's not going to work. It's not going to stop. It's not going to work with an authoritarian government like China and the CCP. You have to show strength. These are not, there's room for negotiations, obviously, but in terms of sending a message, diplomatically, you have to show strength. You can't show weakness and that you're going to allow them to do this stuff and not respond with strength. You have to show strength in the first place to where they don't feel inclined to do this stuff. They know that we'll respond and take action to where they don't feel inclined to do it again. Once we start showing strength instead of weakness, relations will improve with China. And not just China, with Russia and all of our enemies. Instead of showing weakness and fighting them through proxies like we're doing to Russia via Ukraine, show strength. And if you notice, we didn't have these issues with Trump in office because he showed strength instead of Biden, who can't even get through a speech without bumbling and stuttering and doesn't know what he did yesterday. Elections like that matter because now we're portraying to the world that we're weak and we won't do anything if you cyber attack us, and we're going to let you keep doing it. And then eventually we're going to come and have a meaningless trip. I guarantee it won't do jack. They're going to see right through the facade. I mean, we're going to show weakness with this trip. It's not going to accomplish anything. So once we start showing strength, then relations with countries will improve, like China. They won't do it in the first place. I'm not saying we should send missiles in response to that. We have to do something that is equal to what they did, not cyber attacking them per se, but responding in a way that sends a message that, without doing something over the top, that also shows them like, look, we're not going to tolerate this if you keep doing this. And then that stuff like that will stop. And if we showed strength in the first place, maybe this stuff wouldn't happen. So this little trip that Secretary Blinken and Secretary of Treasury Yellen are going to take, I don't think is going to really accomplish much. Then this little call between Biden and Xi Jingping, I don't know what. I just don't think. I think it's more of a show, and I don't know, an improving relations trip, and then going back and nothing changing. I don't know. I don't see it doing much. But again, like I said, the timing of this trip and this call makes you wonder if they are catching on to the fact that China was behind this bridge incident in the cargo ship, potentially cyber attacking the cargo ship and having it wreck that bridge. And this could be sort of a de-escalatory move from the Biden administration to China to try to get them to stop. I don't agree with the method that they're doing it. It's a weak move, in my opinion. But maybe they're perhaps catching on to connecting the dots, and they're not going to say that to the public. They're hiding information from us. If that happened in like China or Russia, I mean, look what happened in Russia. Russia's claiming that we were behind the terrorist attacks and that they have info or evidence proving it. Obviously, they're not going to provide that evidence publicly, but at least they're saying to their citizens, look, these people were behind this attack. Now, you can say whether you believe Russia or not, or if it's propaganda, but they're being open with their citizens and saying, like, look, this was a terrorist attack from an enemy from another country, and the Biden administration, if they do know that China was behind this, they're not going to tell us, because then they're going to show that to its own people that we're weak enough that we're being attacked by another country. And the fact that they're not being open and honest with us is a problem. And so that's why you have to read between the lines of what they're doing. And does that back up the fact that they potentially know that China was behind this? I think so. I think it's all adding up that China was behind this. And what we're going to do to respond, I believe, will accomplish nothing, because we're going to respond with weakness instead of strength. But we'll see. I mean, it's very interesting how we're at a point where we can't trust the government to provide all the information to the citizens. And we have to sort of indirectly read between the lines of their moves to make up our own minds on stuff. It's really sad that we're at that point as a nation, and that we can't trust our own government, our own president to provide us information and be open and honest with us. But that's where we are, unfortunately, as a country.